2, 1. Live.
There's always a slight delay with StreamYard, isn't there?
Well, I'm live right now. Are you guys on?
Same.
Okay, awesome. Yeah. Okay, so it looks like we are live. Welcome to this very special stream. I've got a couple of guests with me today. Familiar faces, you might have seen them before in a couple previous streams. And the title and topic of today's live stream is helping guys trying to find an average girlfriend. With a particular allusion to Geomaxxing, which is where you can optimize in the world or in your own country, like city to city, where you can optimize those factors for your specific dating life. And it was an interesting thing that James Tusk pointed out before we arranged this live stream, is that all three of us come from different perspectives at the moment with regard to our independent geomaxing. So we have James Tusk, who at the moment is traveling the world. I believe he's been in parts of South America, Asia, and Europe as well, if I am correct. So he's going to be able to give good insights on all of those environments. You've got myself, who for the past year has been in the UK university environment. So if you're a guy currently in college or university in the West, then I'll be able to provide insights there. And then we've got Troy Francis, who's done a bit of both, I've heard. Well, not university, but he's been both in the UK, the Western world, and he's also been in countries such as, the continents of South America and Asia. So we've got all different insights here, and hopefully we'll be able to determine by the end of this live stream which will be the best outcomes.
Yes, absolutely, indeed. Just to clarify, I have been to university, but that's not what you meant. You're right. I'm more London-based than Tusk is. I mean, Tusk is pretty much just traveling the whole time. You know, I tend to sort of go back and spend periods of time in the UK and then go off and travel. I'm actually somewhere else at the moment. I'm in Berlin at the moment, which you could argue is probably almost as bad as being in London, really. But from the perspective of dating, anyway.
Well, yeah, I mean, the common denominator on this was obviously we're all from the UK. And look, we're making no bones about it. The UK is one of the it's probably one of the best places to learn this stuff, because you have, I'm talking about cold approach, stuff like that, because you have volume of people there. It's a city of 10 million people, cosmopolitan melting pot. But is it easy? Absolutely not. You're competing with very high value men, good looking men, a lot of money, obviously really fucked up attitudes in the kind of the Anglosphere for kind of wokeness and feminism as well, which complicate matters further, which we can go into. But in no way are we saying the UK is an easy dating place. Troy's been in this game longer than me. I mean, he's been in this game longer than Wheat Waffles is old. And obviously back the rosy days, the golden days, Troy would say himself, it was easier. And even when I started learning the day game in 2012, it was a lot easier to get results from cold approach in London then. Like natural evolution, isn't it? Every year gets harder because you have to get better as an individual. The adaptation needed as a species. You need to get fitter, you need to get stronger, you need to develop your social skills more, and the competition is always going to be fiercer as time goes on.
Whenever we do these streams, there's always this sort of like debate around whether Tusk is actually a Chad or not, because you get guys going like, oh yeah, Tusk is a Chad, he's a giga Chad, and then you get other dudes going, no, he isn't a Chad, no, look, he's got and they'll pick out some minuscule sort of facial flaw and say, look, you see, he's a 4 or something. So just now I've been rated a 6, he's been rated a 7, and then there's another one where I've been rated a 6.5. Okay,
who's the live chat are you watching, mine or your
yours?
Your own. Oh, okay.
I'm just always because Tusk has actually said to me that I'm the vainest man he's ever met, so I'm obviously very keen on watching the scores coming through as they materialise. But anyway, yeah. I mean, was it ever easy? I think there's a bit of a myth around this, to be honest. I think particularly a lot of younger guys who are in this space, and both in the red pill space and the black pill space, there is a sort of a like fake nostalgia for the good old days when you didn't have to be a Chad, you could just rock up and a girl was going to immediately just drop her knickers because she didn't have Instagram yet, and so she didn't know what a Chad was and stuff. I personally don't think it was ever like that, to be honest. The reality is women like good-looking men. Well, or let's to be more nuanced, women like attractive men. Okay, now obviously looks is a huge part of that. So if you were in a nightclub in 1992, before Facebook or Instagram or any of this stuff had been invented, and there was a super Chad-like looking bloke next to you, and you went to chat up the bird, and then he was paying her attention, would she go for you or him? Well, she's going to go for him. You know, biology hasn't changed in the last 20 years. So I don't think there was ever a point when it was like super, super easy. I think what happened in the UK is more about the demographics because back in around 2004 2007ish sort of time, there was a lot of, say, Polish people in the UK, a lot more than there is now. There was a lot of people from the other former Soviet Union countries. A lot of those people have now gone because of partly because of the pandemic, partly because of Brexit and other factors. And so demographically, London specifically and the rest of the UK has changed somewhat. And furthermore, there's also been a sort of hardening of the political line, if you like. So we're getting this more problematic sort of relations between the genders coming about as well. But I don't really buy the whole thing. I mean, yes, maybe Instagram has made things worse to a small degree, but I don't really buy the argument that, you know, back in the good old days, before we had social media, it was, you know, every bloke was in with a chance, because I don't think it was as simple as that.
Well, the idea that a lot of people who follow my channel say is that because women have access to online dating and social media nowadays, they use that medium to fulfill their dating needs. They don't need to get approached by men in the daytime, and hence why, like, I've noticed this in the last 5 years or so, that the majority of women that like are out, you know, in places like London nowadays, if they're traveling, if they're on the tube, or, you know, just walking down the street, they have their headphones, their AirPods in, and they're not really looking for guys to approach them. They're kind of, you know, just sitting there on their phone. They don't want external attention. And I think part of the reason for that is obviously because, you know, like they have online dating. Like, for all you know, like, these women that are plugged into their AirPods and on their phones, they could just be swiping on Tinder, like, while they're walking about and traveling, like, you know, and then that's kind of shifted the, you know, dating marketplace away from the real world, away from day game, and more towards online.
Yeah, I think that's true. And I mean, certainly the thing about women and men, I guess, you know, walking around looking at their phone the whole time and being on headphones, I mean, definitely true. So that socially made things more tricky, for sure, to go and start a conversation, let's say. But all I'm saying is that I think the fundamental biological building blocks were still in place, whether you're talking about 1892 or 1992 or 2022. You know, women have always gone for who they deem to be the most genetically fit guy, and that's just how it is. Or let's say the most genetically fit guy that they believe that they can get.
Do you think, Troy, that it is harder now in the UK in 2022 to date? I think it is more of a minefield for guys.
I think it's more of a minefield, but I think it's more of a minefield, but my view is that the contributing factors to it being more of a minefield are more to do with the demographics and...
In what sense? You mean the fact there's less foreigners now in London?
Yeah.
So it's easier for an English guy to get with a foreign woman because he's the English guy swanning around.
Yeah, back in the day, you know, it used to be that if you'd go out and you'd have conversations in London with women that you found attractive, and really the majority of those women would be from former Soviet Union countries, and so it's not that you have a huge advantage in that sense, but you did sort of have a bit of an advantage because you still had a bit of exotic rarity for them. Whereas now that population is much smaller. So I think that's made it more problematic. And I also think that the political stuff has made it more problematic as well.
Do you think...
I don't think...
The Giga Chat thing, I think, has made it a bit more difficult, but not as big, not as by as big a proportion.
Sorry, if I can just interject here. Like, I don't really buy this point about... the demographics have changed all that much. Like, I think that, you know, recently the numbers have pretty much stayed the same, but I think that they have shifted. Like, you know, over the course of the last 30 years, the, you know, ratio of men to women is still the exact same, and, you know, like, it's not really changed that much, apart from the only factor that might have caused a shift in demographics is that nowadays there are less young people being born. And the problem that causes is that, say, the ratio between male 30-year-olds to female 20-year-olds, it could be as high as 1.5 to 1 or 3 for 2. Because there are less young people being born. So in that respect, the demographics have changed. So there's now less young people, women between the ages of 18 to 25 compared to men who are 18 to 30. And those guys are all in the same dating market, near enough. But the main way that I think that the game has changed in the last, 10, 20 years is that the game has shifted to elsewhere. It's shifted to other places. I think nowadays, for younger guys, the main ways that they can actually get involved in the dating market, first and foremost, is university. Like, I've been in the university scene for the last year, and whenever I've actually seen average guys in a relationship, it's always been at a university. I scarcely see it elsewhere. And I think the reason for this, you've seen the numbers, how they've changed over the last 20 years, that more people are going to university than ever. And in fact, more women are going to university than men nowadays. And if you're stuck in a town where there isn't a university there, then I think that that's a huge blow to your chances, because the university ages is between 18 and 22, 23, depending on when people finish their course. And if you think over half the women nowadays, more women than men, are going to university, that's where they're all going. And chances are it's going to be the smarter people, higher quality people. I don't know if there's a correlation between attractiveness and intelligence, but I'm guessing so. Like there might be something. Just like to give a bit of evidence, my particular school, it was a grammar school, which means that you have to reach a certain level of intelligence to go there. And I'd say at least 70 or 80 or even 90% of the people in my class ended up going to university. And to just attest to this argument even more, when I'm not sure if you guys are aware of this social media app called Snapchat. It has this feature on there called Snap Maps, and it's basically this, low-key stalking sort of, application that you can use. It's this stalking feature. And if I zoom out all of the way to look at the entirety of the UK, the vast majority of people aren't in my hometown anymore. They're at universities, so that's where the majority of the people are going. So if you're stuck in, a town without a university, like little old, I don't know, what's a place like Middlesbrough, all of the, women there who are in your age range as a young guy, they've all gone to university. So what's left is, not really much availability.
Yeah. Right, so you're saying that if guys haven't gone to university, then they are going to be naturally disadvantaged by that?
I think, it definitely does cause a natural shift in the change of the demographics. That if you're a guy who doesn't need to go to university, bearing in mind that there's more women going to university than men, you're going to be stuck in a place where there's very few women in your age range, and you're still competing against the guys who have come back from university who are, 23 years old plus, and they're all going to be competing for the few women that are left who are in the 18 to 22-year-old age range who, didn't go to university. I hope this, point is starting to make sense.
Are we talking about small regional towns or? Major cities.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Basically,
well, I mean, if you're in a small regional,
basically, if you live in Barnsley, you're screwed.
If you're in a small regional town, you have got no excuse in this day and age to build an online business like mine, Waffle Mensch here, or like myself or Troy, the two boomers on the stream, and get the hell out. Why would you want to date in a small regional town where you've got very few women anyway? The world is a global place, and this is really the point of the stream. I actually agree wholeheartedly with what Y Fox Kick says here on my comment. It was never easy, but if you did a great approach, and the chance of responding to your text and flaking were much harder than they are currently. I agree with that, because every year I go back to London from traveling around, and my skill set hasn't changed. If anything, I've got more and more experience. It is harder. I find London harder, and I think the advent of and the boom of things like Instagram, Snapchat, Tinder. It is harder. It is. I'm not. There's no getting away from that. I do think the dating market in the UK.
Maybe it's the years of substance abuse that are taking their toll, James.
Yeah, I was going to say, if a couple of people in the audience,
the Benjamin Button of the dating scene, right?
A couple of people in my audience, they might be saying, "Oh, that's got nothing to do with the game changing. That's the age pill starting to kick in." That,
this is where we vehemently disagree, because I'm very much subscribed to the red pill philosophy that men peak at kind of mid-30s, maybe late 30s, and the fall off is very slow from there if you keep relevant.
Do you really think that's the case, though? See,
yes, I definitely get more action now than I ever did at your age. And you could say that was a lack of understanding, but then the black pill narrative is it's all about looks anyway. So if it's purely based on looks, why was I not doing more damage as a man your age at university than I am doing now? And I do far better now.
But being serious, arguably, maybe you look better now. Because I think that.
But Waffles' point is men peak looks wise at early 20s. That's the black pill narrative, right? Is that correct?
I wouldn't say early 20s. I would say late 20s is a bit more of a
late 20s
point. But that's not. But one of the main reasons that I think that it is late 20s and not 30s / mid 30s is not because of what a lot of red pill critics think it is, which is that that's when men start massively losing their looks. Because if I'm honest, I don't think that there's that much of a difference in looks between guys who are in their late 20s and 30s. I think that they still retain most of it.
Right.
It's a very gradual process, and then obviously it accelerates more towards your late 30s and obviously 40s. That's when you can really start to see the difference. But the main reason that I think that somebody's telling me to ban some there's apparently like some guy who's I'll deal with it in a second. I'll finish this point, and then when you guys are talking, then I'll then I'll, because
he's not doing fresh and fit, is he? Storming into your house with a gun?
No, there's some like racism going on in the live chat or something. And
well, actually, we'll come on to that, because I wanted to say one of the best things I've ever seen in the last month is the black pill terminology for different chads in different
I do want to deal with that. But anyway, I'll deal with it in a second. But to get back to the point, so the reason why I think that the guys in their mid to late 20s do have an advantage is because in my experience, like when I've been at university and a lot of the women there are in the 18 to 22 year old age range, they would say that as soon as a guy who comes up to them and they find out he is older, it immediately just kills it for them, because they think, this guy's almost twice my age. And it doesn't matter. Like the way I'll put it is that, like if you put me and both yourself, Tusk, in the same environment at university, like I wouldn't think that we wouldn't be too far apart. Like obviously, I have no issue by saying that you're more attractive to me. Like you're pretty much beating me in every single box. You've got like the extra height, the face, and your physique as well.
You like 6'3"?
Sorry,
how tall are you?
I'm 5'10". 5'10".
Oh, okay.
No, but I think that the balancing factor would be the fact that like I think that you would end up facing a few rejections based on, like, as soon as the women hear your age, bearing in mind these are 18, 19, 20-year-olds, they would be like, oh, no, I don't think I could do this. Like, they would be turned off by that.
Do you think it's an Anglosphere thing, though? Because it's perfectly normal. And this is, again, a lot of your audience will probably disagree with this, Waffles, because they haven't necessarily travelled. But between me and Troy, we've travelled a fuck ton, more than most people ever will do. And the dating culture outside the Anglosphere is very geared towards not being critical of age gap, right? So it's more old school in the gender roles. Men accumulate wealth and power and social standing, and it's completely normal to see a mid-50s, early 60s guy with like a 20-year-old or several 20-year-olds. Now, do I think they've got anything in common? It doesn't really matter what I think, but places like that me and Troy have been to, together, Poland, Russia, Colombia, it's completely normal to see that. So I do actually agree with you in the kind of microcosm that is, say, university in a second tier city in the UK. But as a global kind of, if we take a global perspective on that, I wouldn't necessarily agree with that. What do you think, Troy?
I agree with you, of course, and I suppose that's the whole point of the stream, isn't it? Really, because we're talking about geomaxxing, we're talking about travel and why it's good to go to different places. And listen, guys, I'm bloody 48. I'm like nearly getting I'll be getting my bus pass soon. I'm literally nearly 50. It's not going to be long until I'm bloody 50, guys. And so for that age, I think I'm doing pretty damn well. But
prime example. I mean, I've travelled again. It's going to sound like rhetoric. I'm backing you up here. I'm not. I'm just trying to make the point that I've travelled with Troy, and I've been on dates or watching him on dates where he's pulled a 19-year-old in Russia. We both took back girls. I'm 35. I took a girl back who's 22. Troy also brought back another girl from another group in Bogota on that night out. He posted clips on Twitter of them in a taxi who was 19. They didn't even ask the age. They didn't give them monkeys, right? And this is actually very akin to university because probably you're going to be pulling a girl from a night out, right? So I do agree with you in some sense in the Anglosphere, like in the microcosm of university, if there's all 19-year-olds around and me and Troy rock up, for no apparent reason, we kind of charge you around, we will get some strange looks like, who the fuck are these old dudes? But this is a very specific environment for a few years when you go through that university process. So I do actually agree with you, Waffles, but I think you're taking it's been taken out of context. It doesn't necessarily replicate the wider sense of the dating market. Women in non-Anglosphere countries do not give as much of a fuck about age.
I agree with that. I actually
you have to
showed
keep yourself relevant.
Yeah, like I support that argument. Like I actually showed in my it was even my most recent video or the one before that in non-Western countries the age gap is a lot bigger between men and women.
Right.
They don't care as much about dating men that are older, and whether that's because men are who are older are usually more financially stable and have built themselves some status and credibility, or whether it's because like they don't care as much about a guy being older. It could be either one of those two reasons.
It's to do with feminism. It's to do with the Anglosphere and feminism and woke culture, and it's muddled the dating market entirely. If you look at places without any kind of feminist influence, the age seems to get bigger. Between what's acceptable. I mean, again, somewhere like Serbia, it's completely normal to see 60-year-olds walking around with 25-year-olds. I mean,
yeah, and by the way, I mean that's why I would never, I would never be in a position where I would be hitting on girls of that age in the UK, because I just wouldn't do it, because culturally it's just not,
it's not right.
It's just not right. And I don't particularly do it actually in other countries. It's not that particularly I would target a specific age group or anything like that, really, at all. It's just that, obviously you go and you meet a lot of people. You meet certain people who are into you. You meet certain people who aren't into you, because obviously rejection is a big part of this. And, along the way, I've certainly met women, say, in their early 20s and things like that, who have just liked me. And we've just got on, and there's just been a good vibe. And so I've gone with it. So, but that is very much, like you say, I mean, in places like Russia, like Colombia, Serbia, these sorts of places. So culture, I think, is so important in terms of the dating market. And the UK is pretty. I don't even think the age gap thing is the worst problem in the UK. Really, I mean that's one thing, but I think more than that, the problem in the UK is that the relations between the two genders have got very politicized now, and it's all sort of like, oh, were you looking at me on the subway? Then you're a misogynist or something. It's all very sort of strange now, and I think that's a shame, to be honest.
Yeah, but I do think, if we're talking about how to maximize dating between different age ranges, if I was, even now, I wouldn't be wanting to sit in the UK and date.
No,
especially
I think it's a different story.
70s, I'll probably fuck off to Thailand. I'm not really concerned about what people think. It's like at that decade in my life, where am I going to have the most fun, do what the fuck I want? It's not staying in the UK even now as a mid-30s guy.
Well, I think it depends on your circumstances. Like, based on what we've just established in the last 10 minutes, I think that if you are a guy who's, in his 30s or, even mid to late 30s, and you still have, like, quite a lot of value, you still got, a decent amount of looks, wealth and status, then it probably is going to be your best bet to move abroad to one of the countries that you're talking about. Because, as you say, these countries care less about men who are older. You see on a regular basis men who are in their 30s dating women who are 10 or even 15 years younger than them. However, like,
it's
if you're
about preference, though, isn't it? Because for example, I know loads of guys who really don't understand this stuff, and they're more than happy, mid-30s, 40s, late 40s guys, 50s, to be dating 30-something women. They don't really care. I guess it's kind of the purists among us that subscribe to the idea that women would peak between the age of, say, 19 to 25, and we want to be around that youthful feminine energy. But you can absolutely stay in the UK and, as a 30s, 40s, 50s dude, and date, women who are 35, 30, 35, 40 with absolutely no issue. We're talking about trying to... But then
you get a lot of people in the comments saying about, but the women who are in their mid-30s, in the West, and they still aren't and they're still on the market, they still haven't got a man, they would say there's probably like at least 10 bad reasons for why that is the case. Either, you know, like she, you know, partied through her 20s and didn't bother about settling down. She's been with loads of different guys and yada 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 yada. You'd hear all that.
Oh yeah, it's not my cup of tea. I'd be dating women who something between 20 to 25. But I mean, a lot of men, they're a bit more desperate. They don't really give a fuck, right? They just want some sort of pussy. They don't think about this in detail.
Let's be really fair here as well. I mean, there are very attractive women who are in their 30s, mid 30s, even late 30s, even into 40s. You know, there are some very attractive women who are those ages. So I think this whole famine and feast idea is not correct, because like Tusk says, you know, you could be a dude in your early 40s, you meet a girl who's 35, 34, 35, she's still really, you know, she's really cute, whatever, you get on. And that's absolutely fine. And that's what it kind of depends what you want, doesn't it? I mean, not everybody is chasing this sort of online, slightly weird sort of like, oh, I've got to, you know, be dating this kind of mythical idea of this perfect woman, you know?
The way I see it,
what is
like
the black pill? What is the black pill narrative for when women peak? Is there such a thing? You know, how you say men would peak at, say?
Well, I think that most red pillars and black pillars agree with this, but for slightly different reasons. That women peak between the ages of 18 to 25. You know, pretty much as soon as they've, you know, like become of legal drinking age, that is when they peak. And I think within the black pill community, there's like 4 main groups of women that they see as like lower value. So women that are overweight, women that are over 30, women that are single mothers, and women that are promiscuous. They like get, you know, the most of the stick, you know, when it comes to, you know, like guys criticizing certain demographics of the dating market. Like the ideal woman painted by a black pillar would probably be, you know, 18 to 22 years old, very little dating history, you know, and so on and so forth, like slim, you know, attractive, everything like that.
Well, similar to, I guess, what people in the quote unquote red pill would think, right?
Yeah, I'd say like, but I'd say when it comes to the black pill sphere, there's a bit more. It's less. I'd say it's actually less emphasis on looks and more emphasis on a woman's purity when it comes to like measuring date worthiness. Like I've seen a lot of red pill guys, especially the ones that are, you know, in the PUA sphere. They don't really care about how many guys a woman has been with in the past and everything like that, and, you know, like how big her dating history is. Like they're happy to still date these kind of women. But I think black pillars are a lot more lenient. Not lenient, sorry, the opposite of lenient in terms of like willing to date those types of women. They're, you know, they have stricter standards in terms of the purity of a woman, and I think that they are usually willing to compromise on the appearance department in order to have a woman who's purer. So I'd say that a black pillar, I'd say that if he really is black pilled, it would make more sense for him to date a 5 who's, you know, higher level of purity, so not much dating history and everything like that, rather than a woman who's an 8 who, you know, scores low in all of the other departments. But I think that, you know, you guys, you know, I don't know if you are red pillars through and through, but I think that you know, like would see appearance first, and that would be like your first port of call, and I'm sure that would show in your dating history as well. Like I'm guessing that both of you guys have been with women that have, you know, seen everything in the dating market, but you don't really care about that. Like you're just happy to go with the flow anyway.
No, I don't think that's true. I mean, look, you think of a high value dude, absolutely. You know, let's take DiCaprio for example. This is a bit out of context, but very good looking guy. You know, height of his power, can pretty much pull any woman he wants, right? The prerequisite for him bringing around a woman is, of course, she's going to be beautiful. I mean, that's just a no-brainer, right? It's the same with most guys who have value, who kind of understand the dating market. It's a no-brainer the girl's going to be good looking.
Ideally, you would want it all. You would want all boxes ticked. But I think that sometimes, if you're going to make compromises somewhere, you know, like, what's the best that a 6 out of 10 guy, everyday kind of guy, can get? He's not going to be able to get an Instagram model who ticks absolutely every box. But the
Instagram models are arguably the biggest hoes, right? They get flown over to Dubai to suck off a camel for 100k. There's no purity there.
What's the SMV of the camel?
Yeah, that's true.
Is it a Chad camel?
A Chad-Am. The Chad-Am is flying her over, or you know. But I think you make the point. The point is clear, right? Look, everyone goes through different stages in life. When you're at university, most men, they're horny fuckers, 18 to 23. It kind of mirrors a woman's party years, right? People don't have experience, want to try new things, they fuck around. Do you really care about the body count of a girl at that stage? Not really. You're not really fully matured, and you don't really know what you're looking for. As you get older, so me and Troy kind of travel around, we'll meet girls. Look, if we're in a club trying to have a one-night stand, do we give a fuck about someone's body count? No. If anything, arguably, it's better if she slept with loads of people because she's going to be more liberal to coming back with us for one night extravaganza. Not
yeah,
at the
well,
same
it depends
time,
what you're
by the way,
looking
separate
for.
rooms. Yeah, absolutely. But
yeah, so like
as you get older, and as I've matured, I've changed what I'm looking for. Right, from banging around loads, I'll still have a one-night stand, but I much prefer to date women non-exclusively, and I'm looking for a number of things in that. And one of those things is, a low body count. I don't want to be with a girl who slept with 100 dudes. I mean, it's the whole lock and key analogy, right?
If you're
the key
dating
that opens every lock is a master key. A lock that is opened by every key is a broken lock, and that's just how biology is. Women should be the choosier race. They should race species. They should be more selective. And if a girl is banging every man and their dog, literally, not bestiality wise, but metaphorically, then that's not on point. Women should be choosier, and you want to be ideally dating someone long term. One of the red flags, I think, if I'm being brutally honest, with a girl, if I was recommending to a client, would be a girl that slept with more than 20, 25 guys. And in the UK, where women can be a bit more promiscuous, or the US, that's going to seem like a low number, or that's going to seem like that's not, because a girl might sleep with a fair few at university. But if you go to places like Russia, the average girl, you're going to get exceptions, you're going to get outliers, but it's not uncommon to find a girl who's like 24, 25. She's had one serious boyfriend, she slept with one guy, right, or two guys. So I think actually, as you get older, you look for different things. I think Troy's the same, where we both prefer to kind of date non-exclusively and have emotional connection with people. We
Can I just ask?
are looking for body counts and things like that. It's not just looks. I mean, of course, we want them to be good looking and in their prime, but personality-wise, all these other factors that play into it, and a low body count is indicative of a usually stability, emotional stability, and mental health, in my opinion.
Can I just ask, if you are dating these women non-exclusively, which I'm guessing means like casual dating and everything like that, why does it matter? Like, why do you care about the purity factors? Like, if you're dating them, casually, surely nothing else matters besides, just is she attractive enough, like, for me to want to see her, once every couple of weeks.
I keep thinking about our friend in Bogota, James. Like I said, I keep thinking about that girl.
Which friend in Bogota?
That girl we both know in Bogota, who we both had some messages from, and she. What was her count? Her count is up there. Is it 500?
Oh, okay, yeah, it's a good indication, right? There's something just, and guys can pretend otherwise, but there's something just, and Troy will probably be able to explain the biology behind it, but there is something not right about a girl that slept with like 100 dudes.
No, but if you're not seeing her long term, then why does it make any difference?
Because it's indicative of the fact she's mentally not quite there, right? Women should be choosier. They shouldn't have massively high body counts. That's why there's kind of this weird revulsion and kind of draw with women in porn, right? They're getting banged on camera all day. They've got that 1,000-cock stare. They might be extremely superficially good looking, but there's something not quite there mentally. Troy, can you explain the evolutionary recoil behind the fact that men are not attracted to women with very high body counts? It doesn't matter the other way around, right? We're programmed to see, but women should be more selective. And
doesn't it just come down to parental, being assured of one's parental, status? Because if a woman has slept around, has a history of sleeping around, then it's going to be more likely that if she becomes pregnant, hypothetically speaking, then the child is not going to be yours. It's either going to be from somebody previous that she's been sleeping with, or indeed, that she's been sort of seeing on the side. So I think that's probably the sort of biological basis of it. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I'm somewhere in the middle with this, because I see a lot of content creators in both the red pill space and also the black pill space who do bang on about body count a lot. And there's this sort of purity fantasy, or not purity fantasy, but there's this idea like, oh, she's got to be this vaginal sort of, perfect barefoot woman who's usually running around in a field of weeds if she's not cooking or, cleaning or whatever. Right? And I think all of that, it's a little bit hokey. It's whatever. I mean, because if you're, as Waffles says, if you're kind of looking for a bit of a more casual sort of sort of lifestyle, then how much does that stuff really matter? And you get the likes of, Richard Cooper, who'll bang on about, how she got tattoos, she's a low quality woman, all that kind of stuff. I mean, a lot of the red flags that get identified by these people, I see as green flags, because I'm like, no, she's got tattoos, awesome, that's hot, So but there again, coming at this from a guy who's a bit older, and I've been dating for a while and everything. I primarily, yes, obviously looks are important, but primarily I want to hang out with somebody who's nice, who's intelligent, who's sort of relaxed, and it's not just this. You're not suddenly involved in this weird sort of game where she's like dating you and she's dating 10 other people on the side, and all this kind of drama. I just want to meet somebody who's nice, who's quite cultured, and we can sit down and we can have a nice talk, and we can sort of go and do some nice cultural things together.
If you did decide to hang up your Spurs, though, would
yes.
if a girl had slept with 100 dudes, would that play into you being a bit like, oh, I don't know if I could really trust her as a long-term mate?
I think probably, yeah, but that would.
I mean, look at the mutual friend we had in common, right? She basically wanted to just bang both of us, each of us, whatever. The fact she'd been very open and said she slept with plus 100 guys, she's pretty good looking. As soon as she said that, we're both like, all right, hold on there. We didn't want anything to do with it, right? And what's the reason
except for
behind
OnlyFans?
that?
Except for OnlyFans. So our next trip to Bogota, that's going to be the first OnlyFans exclusive.
Yeah, I mean, I'm down.
Right. I think we've spoken about this topic like quite a lot now, so I'm happy to go back to the original discussion of the the title of the video, which is about maximizing your location with regard to your dating life, and we've already explored a little bit about whereabouts in the world you would have your advantages, and obviously you guys made the points that it depends on your age to quite a significant degree. So if you're older, then you want to be moving abroad, ideally, because you can still date young, high quality women, and they don't really care about it as much. So I'm happy to continue talking about that, or we can talk more about the micro sort of locations that you can explore when you are already in a specific country. So pretty much pick your country and now pick your environment. Ideally, either warm, cold, or online approach. So what are your thoughts on all of those?
I think we could start with, if you are in different countries, what is the most effective way to go about things? I mean, look, having some sort of social circle is always going to be good. If you know people in high value positions, you have access to women. For example, when we go back to Bogota, one of our friends has met, he just got chatting to this dude over breakfast in the hotel we stay in, who owns a couple of the nightclubs in Bogota. Now, I'm under no illusion if we go out with him, it's going to be far easier to access women, because he's going to let us into the VIP. We're going to be sitting on the owner's table. There's going to be some of the hottest girls there. So building a social circle anywhere you go, and it is an important thing to do. I think you can definitely do more damage with online dating when you travel, because simple sexual market or economics suggests if you put a guy from London, which is considered in most places to be kind of an economically and culturally cool place, your value shoots up. You can just tell by the reactions when we travel to places like Serbia, Russia, Poland, Colombia, where I'm at. If you say you're from London, girls' eyes light up, right? And that's a replica of what happens online.
Out of curiosity, James Tusk, are you on online dating apps when you go abroad? Because according to a lot of people that will be on my followers of my channel, they would say if yourself was in a country like Brazil or whatever, or Thailand, that it would literally be Brad Pitt on steroids with regards to online dating, that you would have so many matches you wouldn't know what to do with them. Do you ever use that online dating avenue to meet women in those locations, and how does it work out? And if also, one more thing, if possible, if you have some experience of using online dating apps in the UK as well, how does it compare and contrast to that environment?
Yeah, I've used Hinge. I've used Tinder extensively over the years. I've always used it to pipeline leads and check new locations. I've had thousands and thousands of matches. But in all honesty, converting those into real dates, there's probably been 5 instances out of the thousands and thousands of swipes and matches I've had where I've actually shown up and the girl's been what she looks like in the photos, in terms of, if I rated her, say, an 8, like a high number, she's actually turned up looking like that. Typically, women are always 1 or 2 points lower because it's marketing, right? They're literally, dating for women is the most important thing they can do. They're going to make sure those photos are on point. So usually the women, when I have gone on dates, are a lot less attractive than they look online.
I've heard that issue is particularly bad for women that are older, because it's a very common problem that they would use photos of themselves from when they were 25, and obviously now that they're 32 or so, their attractiveness has dropped, as you say, by 1, 2, potentially even 3 points since then. So that might be, the problem that you're dealing with.
You can be more targeted with it, I know people that run some Instagram ads, personal Instagram ads, and you can be very specific. And, I've done that a bit. And actually, sometimes the quality of the women on there are high that come out. But there's something just very unfulfilling about doing that for me, which is you're essentially turning up and it's a blind date. You don't know the vibe of the girl. And I don't care how hot the girl is. If I'm sitting on a date with a girl that I just don't gel with in terms of, she doesn't see the world the same, she's arrogant, she's bitchy, she's ticking a number of boxes that I don't resonate with on a personal level, then it's just a complete waste of time for me. I'm beyond the phase now of just needing to bang to up my body count. I've kind of validated myself over the years of doing that, and I'd much prefer to meet someone in the flesh initially, because I can just get a feel for what they're like, and then I will save myself time on the front end by not going on the date on the back end if I don't feel there's a vibe and I don't really resonate with them as a person. I think, Troy, you're probably
just one quick question. Do you openly announce your partner count on your channel?
My what count?
Partner count. Do you openly announce it on your channel, or is it something that you're private with?
I've got no idea how many people I slept with. I mean, before I got into game, I'd slept with 50 people. Before I got in at around 27, but most of them were absolute buffaloes. I was big game hunting, with the lasso and the tranquilizer darts. They were not, occasional hot girl that picked me. It was all girls picking me, and they were not good looking, generally speaking. So that was at 27. I'm now 35. So I've got zero idea how many people I slept with. A fair few. I don't hide it, but equally, I don't know.
Equally, I think it's a bit tacky when you get people in this space and their whole thing is I've slept with X number of women.
It's pathetic. Our common friend who opens who's done individual roasts of Sunday roasts of all of us.
What JAL are you talking about?
One of the best looking dudes I've ever seen to crawl out of a troglodyte based cave with his saggy skin lemon face. I mean, the guy's a loser. He based his whole thing on. His opening gambit to me years ago on Facebook Messenger was, "Oh, yeah, nice to meet you. Can I get some tips on Brazil?" And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "By the way, do you know I've slept with 1,500 women?" I was like, if you've actually slept with 1,500 women, you wouldn't be leading with that as the gig, because guys who are actually, banging that many women and not fucking announcing it to the world, they don't need to validate themselves to anyone. I completely agree with Troy. The whole body count thing is pathetic. If that's your basis for happiness, and your body count with women, it's you've got the priority. You've set the goals wrong. You set the priorities.
Well, he's trying to do that specifically because he wants, he thinks that demonstrates his skill, because it's a sort of simple quantity over quality argument, isn't it? It's a simple sort of like, well, if I've been with this number of women, then therefore that means I have X amount of expertise, and that I don't agree with that basis and premise in any way. But in terms of the sort of the body count, the dating stuff, I mean, as I'm older than both of you guys. In fact, I'm probably about as old as both of you added together. I can't remember how old Wheat Waffles is. No, but I'm older than you guys. And for me personally, and I mean it may be different for other people. For me personally, and this is actually quite a good thing, because the libido starts to gradually sort of slope downwards. I don't really give that much of a monkeys now about, like, one of the reasons I don't really use dating apps. I mean, when I was in Russia last year with Tusk, I had Tinder, and I was doing a bit of swiping just to sort of see who was out there and get a sense of the quality and stuff. But I very, very rarely met people off it, and very rarely had a desire to do so, because as I was saying before, what I'm looking for now is, if I'm going to actually spend time with somebody, if I'm going to take an evening out and go out and spend time with this girl and maybe get a shisha or whatever we're going to do, I want her to be a cool girl. And the only way that you know that up front is if you've interacted with her in real life. You just don't know it from the apps. So you're looking at these pictures of this person. She may or may not look like those pictures now. And also, you've got no idea of the vibe. And the thing that I hate most of all is you turn up on a date and then you've got to sit there with a girl for an hour and a half or whatever it is, and you just don't have anything in common, or you guys just don't get on. So I much prefer doing that sort of chemistry test with a face-to-face approach in the first instance, rather than doing the dating.
You know what? The points that both of you have said with regard to online dating, like make a lot of sense, and I think that that's the main issue with with regard to like dating apps and Tinder, is that it's a very it's a highly intensive process. Like it's one issue that I'm sure 90% of guys deal with first, like and foremost, is the quantity. But once you even get like a significant degree of quantity, like let's say that you're a 6 out of 10 and you like have an absolute banging profile, so you're able to get a decent number of matches per day, so you can start conversations. But the ROI I've heard is absolutely abysmal on online dating. It's atrocious. That
it's terrible.
Like the only way that it's actually feasible for it to be a better return on investment in terms of time is if you automate the process. And like I've heard the content creator Hamza has done that with his profile, that he doesn't even bother trying to swipe on women anymore, or setting up the dates and texting, because he knows how inefficient it is. Like as you say, for every 1,000 matches you get, you're probably going to get 100 messages, then you're going to get 10 dates from them, and then 6 or 7 of them will probably flake or something like that. And then the ones that do turn up, two out of 3 of them are going to be completely pointless. They're going to be wastes of time. You don't click with them or something like that. There's going to be all sorts of issues. So in terms of that funnel, we're literally talking about 1,000 to 1 funnel, which is an extremely inefficient use of time, even if you have the quantity, which, as I said, is the first barrier that most people get obstructed at in the first place. So I think the only way that it can be efficient for online dating is if you automate the process, and obviously you'll need some like financial resources to be able to prop that up, to hire a guy literally to manage your profile for you, so we can do all of the swipes, all of the texting, all of the setting up of dates. And then it takes a minimal amount of effort on your part. All you have to do is show up to a couple coffee dates once a month or whatever like that. So, and that could be a bit more efficient in that way. But as you say, like you can be able to break through that barrier of figuring out whether a woman is cool or not within a 10-minute conversation if you cold approach her.
Yeah, you save time on the back end. I'm massively for meeting people in real life, because you get a sense for that vibe.
Yes.
And it just saves 100%. You so much time. I mean, and let's not forget as well, dating apps are a business. There's a reason the creator, the female creator who set up Bumble, is a billionaire. It's a business. They don't run to make you happy.
And I guarantee you 95% of those profits came from the male users of the app, not the women.
Yeah, and there was a whole thing, wasn't there? It's slightly different, but the Ashley Madison website, when those details got linked, it turned out like 90% of the profiles of the women on there were fake. They'd been set up by the... So you had 90% men competing for 10% actual real-life women. And it was massively skewed. It was made out to be this sexy dating app where there's, where you can have an affair and all this stuff. But yeah, apparently 90% of the profiles, the female profiles, were just bots, and they were just set up.
I think you just have less. I think you just have less patience for this stuff as you sort of get older, and maybe as you travel more as well. Because I mean, there's no way in the UK I would ever be using Tinder or anything like that anymore. I mean, I used to use it back in the day, and maybe Tinder actually is one of those things that it actually was somewhat easier, I think, some years ago. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just because I've changed, I got older, whatever. Because there is a bit of an age pill thing on Tinder as well, I think. But I don't think it is that, because I've heard reports from so many other guys who say the same thing. I think it used to kind of be okay. But even then, I would meet people. I would get matches. I'd meet people. I met a couple of girlfriends off there who I ended up dating for a while. So it worked in that sense. But the whole process of it is just not very fun. I think,
no.
And it's weird, isn't it? Because what's called cold approach, which is basically just having conversations with people in real life, right? Social skills. That gets vilified in some quarters, because people will say, "Oh, it's really weird," like, "Oh, well, how would you mean you spoke to her outside a coffee shop? What are you doing?" As if swiping on a screen on a small bit of fucking, whatever is normal. I mean, that seems like such a strange way to meet people and to engage in the most intimate aspects of your life, arguably. I just don't really like it at all. I haven't got the patience. I don't like the messaging. I don't like all of the nonsense that goes with it.
Do you bother with online dating, Waffles?
Sorry?
Or Do you bother with the online dating stuff these
Oh no, I
days? Or
don't
not
don't
really?
anymore. I had one success from it over a year ago now, a year and a half ago in fact, and she was my first girlfriend. But that was it. Like that's the only person I've ever met on online dating, and that was probably about out of 50 matches or so. Like I was only on there for a few weeks until I realised it was a complete waste of time. And you mentioned James Tusk about the fake profiles like epidemic on online dating. It's not just that, but in the West, like I've heard guys that are on there now, even the real profiles like aren't even real. Like if you match with an attractive girl, you know that half of them will just be advertising their Instagram or their OnlyFans, that they're not even interested in meeting up with you, so you're kind of just being used in that way. And Troy, I wanted to elaborate on the point you said about the age pill of these dating apps. Like there is definitely an age pill on online dating, because in cold approach, it doesn't matter if you're 35, 40, you can still, in theory, approach a woman who's as young as 18 years old. Like, whether it works out or not, and, if you got a good chance with her or not, that's an argument we can have for another day. But with regard to online dating, you can't even match with the younger girls a lot of the time, because the majority of women who are in the 18 to 25-year-old range have their match settings, their display profile settings as guys under 18 to 29 only, or at the very max 18 to 39 or 34. Very few women, like, so the point is that if you're a man who's 35, there's a very slim chance that your profile is even being shown to many women that are in the 18 to 25-year-old range. So there's a big age pill there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And again, it depends what you're looking for, because I know guys who have got nothing to do with this space or anything like that, and they're older guys, and they use Tinder, and they're getting loads of dates. But of course, drill down into it. Who are they getting dates with? Well, they're getting dates with women who are very close to their age. I would venture to guess probably not supremely attractive women. So, it depends where your expectations are. I mean, our expectations, because we, I suppose we work in this space or whatever, have been raised to this ridiculous sort of level, or not ridiculous, but they've been raised to a higher level. Whereas, out there in the real world, you get guys who are perfectly happy to use Tinder and Hinge and Bumble and stuff, because actually what they're looking for is less competitively priced in the marketplace, let's say.
Yeah. How would you? I mean, what's your opinion, Wheat Waffles? I mean, for a guy who's coming out of university, and I'm sure you know many. What is a guy's option? I mean, what do you think his best option is?
If he's played his cards right, and he's came out of university with a decent enough degree, he should be able to get a job where he can move himself anywhere within the country. Ideally, even if possible, he might be able to go anywhere in the world. But let's just assume that he can go anywhere in the country for starters. I would say that he should stick to the big cities, and again, with a university there. That's probably going to be his best option, and not everybody, has that opportunity, unfortunately. But if I'm honest, I think that half the people out there put themselves in their own position. But by doing
how should he be meeting women, in your opinion?
Sorry,
this guy. How should he actually be meeting women?
I think that the two best avenues for it depends what kind of attractiveness we're talking. For an average guy, I think that his two best options is warm approach or sometimes cold approach. But I would say that he shouldn't even bother with online. I think that this is going to be a little bit of a controversial opinion. I think I'm going to get a lot of hate for this in the comments. But even when it comes to online dating, I think it only benefits one group of people. And it's not even the people that you would think. Like, people always say on my channel that only chads can succeed in online dating. But, as we've established, a man like yourself, James Tusk, who many people from my channel would say is a chad, even for you, it's not a great option, because the amount of time, energy, effort it takes is just completely a waste of time. And then you've also got to factor in that not many of the women are going to be high quality when you actually turn up for the date. So it's just an awful ROI. The only guys that it actually benefits on online dating is guys that are in a very niche market. So these are the guys that won't get a lot of matches, but the matches that they do get vibe with them, are interested in this one specific guy. And I think this is kind of the reason why I was able to have a rare success, which not many guys can say they have from online dating apps, is because I think I fall into this category a little bit myself. Like, I think I'm in a niche market a bit because I've got red hair, and pretty much every single woman that messaged me on these dating apps would leave open with a message alluding to something to do with the color of my hair, and I wouldn't get many matches, but the ones that I did get were at least somewhat interested. I rarely got aired after the first response, and as I say, I think if I added up all of the matches that I ever got on online dating, I would say that it was no more than 50. And the sample size isn't huge, but if I was able to at least get one relationship out of that, that's not a bad rate of return. 50 to 1, as opposed to your funnel, James Tusk, which is you get 1,000 matches, but then the vast majority of them are wastes of time.
Well, the other option to bear in mind is if you've got a social status, if you've got a good Instagram profile. So I know a couple of guys who have got 100, 200,000, right? And they will get a lot of DMs from attractive women in their prime. And that's an option. But then you've got to cultivate value. So for the average Joe who doesn't have an amazing Instagram, yeah, you can't be reliant on that. But guys actually who do, maybe they've got some sort of celebrity standing, or they've been on Big Brother or something stupid, Love Island, something like that, or whatever. They've got some sort of high status job, or they've just built a good following, however they've done it. You will get options. You do get options. So that having that inbound stream is also a good way to do it. Now, I would never want to be reliant on just that. I think there's a certain power to cold approach where you take your fate into your own hands. There's something quite nice about that. But that is also an option to be explored for a certain select group.
Yeah, but this doesn't help any of our audiences really. This is talking about the top 0.01% of the population. So, it would probably work for those guys as well. But once you've reached that level of, status and looks, it's harder to cock up your dating life than it is to get right. Because you're going to have it, very easy. It's going to be a very smooth ride.
Or potentially
if you've been on Love Island or something, then yeah, your DMs are going to be filled probably for quite a few years afterwards. I mean, I've seen interviews with people who've been on reality shows, and even 2-3 years afterwards, even if they were only in the show for a short time, they're still getting girls coming up to them. They're still getting DMs and stuff. So fame is the great panacea to all of this. Really, it's the shortcut that goes through everything. I suppose. Well, arguably fame coupled with a certain degree of looks as well, But yeah, I mean that's always gonna. But like Waffles says, I mean for most guys watching this, that's just not going to have any relevance at all. But I mean, Tusk, you'll agree with me on this. I think every single guy that I ever speak to about this whole issue of dating apps versus meeting in real life, everybody without exception says that they get better results in real life. I can't think of anybody. I mean, maybe there's been some rogue one or something, but I can't think of anybody who's ever said to me, any guy who's ever said to me, whether they're a Chad or a less good looking guy, who's ever said, I get better results on dating apps than I do in real life.
Well, yeah, obviously that would be the case for the vast majority of guys. In fact, if not all of guys. But I guess the reason why online dating is still so popular is because of the convenience and the people say that online dating is like the gambling industry of the dating market, that people think that it's going to be great and it's easy and it simplifies the process so much, but it's just so far from the truth. And I definitely agree that if a guy wants to if an average guy wants to have a successful dating life, then warm approach and cold approach are 100% the way to go. I'll elaborate a little bit more in a second, but I just want to address this super chat because somebody sent $20, which is quite significant, so I just want to answer his question for a minute. Can we talk about the importance of status? Wheat rated me a high 6, but I never get approached by women. Recently, I joined a popular band in my local area, and now every other show, attractive girls are asking me if I'm single. Yeah, this does make quite a lot of sense. So the first point that you said about being rated a high 6 and never getting approached by women, I wouldn't say that a high 6 is, even close to being attractive enough where you'd get approached on a regular basis. That is almost strictly reserved for men who are 8+. As for the second point you said about joining a popular band in your local area and that was able to change that, well, yeah, that's status, isn't it? So I think on paper, if we look at what you provided here, a high 6, so he's not bad looking. I would say according to my data, that puts you roughly in the top 25%. For the people that watch my channel. So top 20%, top 25% looks, and then supposedly high status as well. If you're in a popular band, then of course it's going to make sense that some women who are followers of you are going to be asking if you're single and approaching you. Do you guys have some thoughts on that? A combination of looks and status?
Yeah, I think there's we can probably all pull out plenty of examples of guys who are actual rock stars who are in quite big bands and they're not hugely good looking. I mean, what about Ozzy Osbourne, for God's sake? I mean, like there are plenty of guys who probably meet that criteria. I mean, that's one of the reasons guys go into bands in the first place, isn't it? Because they get the chicks. So I think status, without a doubt, is a huge thing. And I think maybe that's underplayed in the Black Pill a little bit sometimes, because the Black Pill answer to this will often be, well, yes, but you don't become famous unless you're good looking in the first place. It's like, well, what about Ed Sheeran though? So yeah, I think it's a bit of a no-brainer really. Status is hugely important.
I would say that it's like, obviously the focus of the Black Pill is looks, but if I had to say that another factor came in second, after all of the branching terms of looks, so after your face, height, body, everything like that, I would say that status comes second in the queue. Like thing that the factor that people are most critical of within the Black Pill sphere is like game and money. Like they're really critical of those because they think that money just leads to beta buxing, and game obviously is worthless without meeting a minimum looks threshold that your game will be perceived as cringy or awkward, or at the very worst offensive if you're an unattractive guy and you try utilizing game. So I don't think status is that underplayed within the Black Pill community. I would say that it's second in the queue after looks, of course.
I think they're all important. I mean, I was listening to the Rich Coper book, which is actually really good. I listened to it last night, Unplugged Alpha, and he talks about look, status, money, and game. And he often gets asked, he goes, one of his common things is rate that in order of importance. And the point he made is they're all fucking important. Why not max them all out if you can? Yeah. And again, it goes into, again, things like height. They can be changed. Like, really, anything can be changed. Would you want to go through that? I know 2 clients that have gone through that. Extreme leg breaking surgery, and they gain like 3 inches. And then if you slap on a pair of 2-inch Timberlands, you gain 5 inches. Not girth-wise, not lengthwise in the sausage category, but in terms of actual height, right? And a big kind of unchangeable and black thing is height. You can change that. Now, do most guys want to go to those kind of extremes? I don't know. If I was 5'4", would I want to do that? Don't know how I'd feel about it because I'm not. But the point he makes, they're all important. So why would we pigeonhole one as more important? Why not just max all of them out? I think that's the point. And I think it's a good way to look at it. Why not have loads of money and be financially free? Why not max out your looks, because you've got to play the hand you're dealt. You can't teleport to another body at this stage in our evolution, so you might as well play the hand you've dealt and play that to the best of your ability. Make it look as good as possible. Why not learn social dynamics and learn to be a guy has a very powerful frame on life and makes people jump into that frame willingly? Why not understand that?
I agree with this. Sorry? Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with this, that all of those things that you mentioned, the looks, money, status, and game, I'd say that they all do help. Like, they definitely don't cause a negative. Like, I think all red pill advice, listen to this point closely, audience.
Mr. M's
make sure that you're not confusing my words. I think all red pill advice is good. It is pointing in the right direction. It's not like blue pill advice where they say you need to be really available to women and message every single text as fast as you can. I think that's detrimental. But I think... So the point is, listen closely, that all red pill advice is good advice, but I think that the main disagreement between red pillars and black pillars is the extent to which it works. I think that all black pillars can agree that, the 3 tenets of the red pill, status, money, and game, having more of those said things will lead to better results. It does help. It does point you in the right direction.
I think the point of Rich Cooper is hardcore red pill, isn't he? And Troy knows him better than me. But he went through a very messy divorce. It's interesting listening to his book. But he completely includes looks as part of the main value things. If you have 4 tenets, one of them is looks. So
I think there's
you can improve all of those things. But I think it's to different extents.
I think there's often a lot of misrepresentation or mischaracterization of the I even hate the term red pill because I don't even really consider myself like red pill as such. But that side of the argument, there's a mischaracterization that you've got dating roaches like me and Tusk and Mr. M, who are sitting here saying looks don't matter, and if you just say these 6 lines, then any girl's going to jump into bed with you. And of course, that's nonsense. None of us are saying that. If there's one thing we all agree with on this panel, it's that looks matter, right? Looks do matter in dating. Of course they do. Only an idiot would think that they don't. But I suppose the point of contention, if there is one, is the degree to which they matter and the degree to which they can be mitigated by other things, like social skills. So we would argue that they can be mitigated to some extent by social skills or by game or whatever you want to call it. Wheat Waffles might agree somewhat with that, or maybe not. You can tell us in a minute. But then there will be more hardcore black pill people who would say, no, it's all about looks and the way that you put yourself across doesn't make any difference at all. That's the bone of contention. I don't think anybody, or nobody with any credibility and authenticity anyway, is arguing that looks don't matter, because that would just be a stupid thing to say.
Well, apart from blue pillars, but for your point about the extreme black pillars, even those people, unless they are like completely so far gone, even they like agree that the pillars of the red pill do at least have some amount of weight to them, that game status and money do yield positives, but obviously they dilute those things down so much that they're pretty much non-existent. Like they think that it's less than 10% of the equation. And this is I just can't help but agree with your point that you're saying that black pillars and red pillars alike, everyone here on this panel, they all do agree that looks, status, money, and game all are important. That they all are beneficial to a man's dating life. But the main point of contention is the extent to which we believe, that they are important. And obviously, the only people that disagree with this are people that are unknowingly blue pilled. So they might argue, oh, height doesn't matter at all. Like they're the kind of people that say, even short guys, that's actually better. Or they're the kind of people that say, no, game will actually hurt your chances. If you follow dating coaches like James Tusk, then that's going to make your dating life worse. You shouldn't listen to him. They're the only people that disagree with both the red pillars and the black pillars. They think that the things that we see as positives, they see as negatives.
Yeah, interesting point. Where would you say you are now on the spectrum, though, Wheat Waffles? Because you're ostensibly like black pill, but would you say you've moved slightly in a different direction?
You've softened in your old age.
A lot of people have been commenting that in the last pretty much since I've started this channel. Almost, they say that I started off as a staunch black pillar, but ever so slightly, I've been changing the temperature and I've been shifting over to the red pill. Like I disagree with that. I think that my beliefs mainly has stayed the same. I believe in one of my earliest videos I said that I'm 80% black pill and 20% red pill. I would say that those numbers are more or less unchanged now. I think that it's mostly the same. Like obviously I still do believe that looks is by far the most important, but that's not denying. Like people assume whenever I give any amount of credit to the red pill, such as I have been in the last 15 minutes, they think, oh, that means that I'm automatically turned into a red pillar. If I say, game can help a 6 out of 10 guy in his dating life, if I make that remark, people will say, oh, that's, you're just turning into a red pillar now. You're just jumping on the grift train like all of the other PUA coaches out there. But I don't think that makes you red pilled for saying that, average to above average guy can have a better dating life by improving his looks, status, and game, and that doesn't make you red pilled either for saying that. It's just I believe that you coined the term one time about a year ago. It's maroon pilled or something like that.
Yeah, we tried to get that one off the ground.
Yeah, it didn't quite catch on.
We'll have to try and resurrect that.
Can we go through the different Chad equivalents in various ethnicities? So we've got Chad, Chad Light, Chad Roan, Chad Preet, Chad Am, and a Chang.
A Chang.
Chinese Chang.
So you're
Chinese Chad. Any other Chad? And you've got Chadsky for a Russian Chad. Any other Chads?
This is completely unrelated, but I think
No, I know. I just like
no. I was going to bring up some
when I saw like black pill terminology and that someone listed out all a Chad pre and a Chad am. I mean, because
you've got you've got a Chang on your channel now, haven't you, James?
Well, you love calling Jaden a Chang. He's very made in Chelsea, isn't he? I think he's an actor because he came in with the sob story of like, oh, I couldn't speak English to I was 10. He's got the most made in Chelsea accent I've ever heard, and he kind of schwaffs around wearing a blazer. He's definitely a Chang, if there is such a thing.
Yeah, like you just reminded me of something else. A few weeks ago, I saw some meme that was similar. This is completely unrelated to the dating market, but it's a similar concept. It said it was like. It was a diagram showing all of the names that Messi would have if he was from different places of the world. So if he was from Croatia, it would be Mesic. If he was from Brazil, it would be like Mazzili or something like that. If he was from Scotland, it would be McMessi. If he was from Ireland, it would be O Messi or something like that. It was just going all around the world, like, using the stereotypical names that people have from those kind of countries.
Yeah, I like it. We'll come up with a proper list at some stage.
Yeah. all the countries of the world for Chad.
Muck Chad from Scotland, I suppose.
Yeah. And then Chad from Ireland, and then Chadini from Italy.
Chadini. So what are the takeaways from all this then? Guys are watching this going, hold on, you guys should be like shouting at each other because you have completely different views of the whole spectrum. You sit on different sides of the spectrum, but what are the key takeaways for guys to really leverage? I mean, I think we can all agree on looks, money, status, game. They're all important to varying degrees, but why not work on all of those elements?
Well, we haven't really talked so much about actually geomaxing, have we? Which is the initial topic for the stream.
We haven't touched on it at all. Where should guys be going in 2022? From my point of view, if you're an older white guy, Thailand, Southeast Asia, it's not a bad place to start.
Define old. What age range are you talking?
Late 50s, 60s, I guess. You really want to hang up your spurs. I mean, you can really do some damage over there. I mean, it's an interesting transition, isn't it? Because it really depends on kind of what guys want, and there's no one size fits all. Where can you go as a guy where you're going to be able to get easier quote unquote action if you're just looking for sex? Southeast Asia is a good place to start, or the Scandinavian countries, because they're extremely promiscuous. Places like Norway, places like Finland, places like Sweden, very, very big one-night stand culture. If that's what you're looking for, maybe as a younger guy, maybe as the average guy who views your channel, Wheat Waffles, who is just looking for sex because he's kind of in those kind of quote-unquote party years as well, and he just wants to get laid. Maybe those places are good places to start. And also places with events, right? So we talk a lot about this thing called Party Day Game, which is essentially me taking guys to Rio Carnival. Rio Carnival it's the biggest street party in the world. It's known as a singles person's event. So if you charge in there as a foreigner, amongst a load of horny Brazilian women, the chance of you getting laid is quite high as a foreign dude, because the women are you're a novelty, and also they're there to get laid. So picking events where it's kind of like an anything goes thing, like a Burning Man or a Day of the Dead or an Oktoberfest in Brazil or a New Year's Eve in Brazil, Rio Carnival in Brazil, things like that, you're going to be able to get laid easily. So I guess really a lot of the guys watching your channel, that kind of age range, that's what they're looking for, right? I don't know what the age range of the guys that watch your channel is, but I would assume it would be lower.
Yeah,
maybe you're 18 to 25-year-olds.
The majority is between 18 to 29 who watch my channel.
To 29, okay.
18 to 29. 18 to 29.
Sure. Well, I guess speaking from my own experience, I think Troy as well. I mean, when we were those ages, we were just looking really to get laid as much as possible. So I mean, those countries I've listed wouldn't be the worst place to start.
Well, it depends what they're after, because I think a lot more guys who follow my channel, they aren't just looking to, sleep around and date casually. A lot of them are just looking for a relationship. I'd even say that's the majority of them. A lot of the people that watch my channel, they aren't the highest value. They're not, 6s or 7s or 8s. So it oftentimes the best way that they can, get the most value out of the dating market is to try to get lucky with a relationship. So for the guys who are, 4.5s and 5s out of 10, a lot of the people that follow my channel were looking for relationships.
It'd be an interesting thing to do, like they've done it with US presidents, where they correlate all the US presidents into one photo, and it just shows what the kind of average person looks like. But I'd love to get like 3,000 guys who watch your channel to actually send in photos of what they look like, and they correlate that into a face.
Well, I have.
Enjoy's assumption is they're not actually these Quasimodo kind of characters bent up in wheelchairs with a Picasso-like painting thing going on, and a nose up here and an ear out here. They're actually reasonably good-looking guys who just kind of side on the version of like, you're young, you haven't hit your value peak, and it's easier to side on the side of, oh, let's give up, the world's going for the dogs, because we live in a soft. Each generation is softer and softer.
I think an important point to make about the black pill stuff is that people in the black pill talk about sub 5, right? So somebody who's sub 5 in points. But what proportion of a black pill channel's audience is actually sub 5? And what proportion is more like normie guys or relatively sort of average looking dudes who just haven't maxed out their looks yet? So I think that's an important distinction to be made, because if a guy is drawn to black pill material, but he isn't really actually aesthetically that bad, to be frank, then you might be doing yourself a disservice. And I just fear that that's happening a lot of the time.
Because if you look at and not to kind of say these people are the guys that watch your channel are looking up to these kind of guys, but if you think of the extreme end of that kind of extremist spectrum, right, of people like Elliot Rodgers and Jake Davidson and nutcases going to kind of follow that incel path, right? You look at them and you think hypothetically, they're not that bad looking. If, have got the gym, put on some muscle, got some fashion makeover, learned to be high levels of social freedom, learned to have a bit of banter, they'd definitely be able to date. So we're not talking about these kind of Quasimodo characters, in wheelchairs, are we really, that your audience represent?
What would they look like? Well, I actually did 1,000 guys in a previous video.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if you guys know, but I have a face rating service, and I compiled all of the data from that. Yeah.
Did you amalgamate them into one overall face?
Yeah. Well, not into one face, but like I have the data on, like, to answer Troy's question about what percentage of guys are below a 5 and what percentage of guys are average to slightly above average, and how many guys are so-called Chad tier. And it was the data came out as 9% of guys are a 7 or above, which I consider would be attractive enough that they would occasionally have women approaching them. So that would be the Chad tier. Three-quarters of guys were in the middle, 4 to 6 range. So most guys were average, and then only about a 7.
Well, four is low. I mean, 6 is average, right?
4 isn't great. That's like kind of a grey area between sub 5 and normie. So but I think that most guys who are 4s can looks max at least to 5.
And is this just based on face, or are we talking?
This is just based on face, but
body? Okay.
No, this is just based on face. However, I did also collect data for their body too. So 10% of guys were overweight. So obviously the first step forward for those guys would be to lose weight.
Only 10% were overweight.
10%.
Only 10%.
10%, yeah. And then, in fact, more people were jacked than were overweight. 15% of the people that asked for ratings, my community, were jacked, which is quite staggering numbers if you ask me.
And height? What was the height?
I didn't do too much into height.
The key one.
No. I did do a little bit of height. I think it was something like 10% of guys specifically mentioned in my in their order that they were below 5'7".
Only 10%.
But there might be a few missing data points
and
from
only 10% were below 5'7". So basically, you've got a load of average-faced, jacked, tall dudes who watch your shit.
Well, there was
that. If they actually went out and did some cold approach and learned some social skills, would be killing it.
Well, there was
come
that.
To Poland with us, guys.
There was also quite a few.
Get over.
There was also quite a few guys that have other things like they were balding, or they were like over the age of 40. Which a lot of black pillars would say, if the height and face isn't a death sentence, then these other things surely will be. So if you add up all of the factors combined, I'm not sure how many people who follow my channel have one of these sub 5 traits that I've spoke about in my video. I'm not sure if you guys are aware of the acronym. I'm not sure how much of my content you watch, but I've coined this phrase sub 5, this acronym, which is short, ugly face, bald, inches, which you can probably guess, vulnerable, which is highlighting somebody's age, and then ethnicity is the last one. So if you add up all of those from my audience, I'm not sure what percentage would have at the very least one of those factors, but I'd guess it'd probably be somewhere between 30 to 50%.
Yeah, one of them. But in a combination, I agree that could be a bit killer. But one of those, out of those kind of 4 or 5 traits you've listed as a standalone, where the other things are actually average or above average, is definitely not a death sentence.
Yeah, I would say so. Like, if you're a guy who's Chad face, and then you're 5'7", say, but then you also have a good body and you're high status and you have all of the other things going for you, then I guess they kind of do make up for the height that you're lacking. So not all of those.
Would start. I mean, just for your own volition, not for me and Troy to score points. But I would definitely, when you do a face rating thing, which obviously is a popular thing, get them to fill out as much detail as they're comfortable with. Not like necessarily where they work, but job, income, body pics, height, all these things. Because it'd be really interesting actually to assimilate that data and just see where people are actually at. Because again, my assumption is, you may disagree, but my assumption is the average dude watching your stuff is not a no hope, Picasso painting lookalike, who's 4 foot tall. He's actually probably a relatively average dude with a kind of a doomer mindset.
The average guy who watches my channel is what it says in the name, average. That is the vast majority of people. I think out of the 1,000 guys that I, used for that video, I worked out the average face of all of them, and it was 4.8, which is literally 0.2 points away from being a 5. So the vast majority of people who follow my channel do fall into that average territory.
Yeah,
we're just talking face though. We're not.
Obviously that's just talking face, and there might be other factors that play there. But just in terms of face, they're average. Which there is some breathing room for those guys. They can do a bit of work, and they probably will be able to improve their dating life. But that's not.
Yeah, and they should get out of Barnsley or wherever they are as well. Because if you're in a very small, like with the American black pill side of things, whenever I, obviously I'm sure a lot of your audience are American. I always kind of sometimes when I read comments and things, I think, well, where are these people? And you always get this impression they're in some tiny town in Arkansas or something. Do you know what I mean? And yes, of course, if you're in that situation, the dating market is going to be really tough. If you're in a small town somewhere and you're surrounded by sort of essentially the same people you went to school and college or whatever with, there probably is still that hierarchy. It probably is like the local Chad who works at the local filling station or whatever is getting all the girls, and then then you've got whatever, and then you're somewhere that the dude
that was deliberate. That was deliberate.
And a Chad neck, basically a Chad
at a filling station.
Yeah. and it goes down the thing. But that is the huge power of, I suppose, geomaxxing, but also not even geomaxxing in terms of travel, but actually just moving somewhere else. You want to get out of those kind of hierarchies. You don't want to be sitting around in Barnsley in the UK going to O'Neill's and trying to hit on the same women you've been getting rejected by since you were 14 years old. You want to get the hell out of there. Go to London. Go to bloody New York. You've got to go where your chances are optimized, and the chances for everybody actually tend to be in bigger cities. I mean,
I agree with that.
Yeah, so you need to move.
This guy, hilarious comment. Who is this guy that's not Troy or Tusk? I remember him from Torero, right? What this guy's trying to say, but I like it. So we haven't talked about geomaxxing at all, which is great. Actually, no, we did talk about it. So,
there was a lot at the start.
Just to add to that, Troy, any other countries you recommend guys check out, I guess, for ease of dating?
I know you didn't mention Colombia in your
Colombia is good.
The question, the places you just went through. I mean, you introduced me to Colombia. I'm a big fan now, to the point that I'm thinking of just selling everything and going and moving there, because I think
I just have so much respect for that.
Because I think it's got to be a good place and even for a guy who's getting a bit older. I mean, you've got your friend Silver Fox who's in Medellin, haven't you? And he seems to be doing amazingly by all accounts. So, I mean, what's your thoughts on that for guys in general?
Colombia is a great place to go. And then I think just to touch on Wheat Waffles' earlier point of on a more micro level, where should guys be kind of approaching, I think we're all in agreement that online dating does blow, really, unless you've got a really good profile and you're using Tinder as a kind of inbound source or something like that. But yeah, I definitely think building a social circle, as Waffles says, so, making friends and befriending high value guys, using that charisma to build social circles, that's going to give you options with women, but also then being more targeted with the approaching. I really like girls who go to the gym who are in quite slim and good shape. So a lot of the approaching I've been doing is moonlighting between different gyms in Cali, where I am at the moment, in Colombia, right? Because the goods are on show. So on a micro level, picking places where, you're going to find women that you're attracted to for whatever reason. I'm really big on women who are in good shape. I'm in pretty decent shape. I go to the gym a lot. My diet's all right. Could be better, JP would say. But I mean, I'm looking for girls in shape. So a lot of the game I do would be in gyms, or if I'm in a beachside place like Rio, it's on the beach. But equally, I think, to go back to that one week, Waffles, it's about thinking about what you're really looking for a partner, maybe some shared common interests, things like that, and then potentially gaming, cold approaching or warm approaching in those type of environments. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it did make sense, and I've actually heard that point before. You said about approaching women in the gym, and I'm not saying this will work for absolutely everyone, but as you say, if you've got enough value and you have a good body yourself and you're ticking all of the other boxes, then if you are a person that values aesthetics quite a lot, then it makes a lot of sense to obviously approach in the gym, because quite obviously common sense would suggest that the majority of the women there take quite good care of their appearance as well. And I actually made the opposite of this point in my video about nightclubs, that just by the very nature of a nightclub, chances are you're going to be seeing a lot of women that aren't looking after themselves. From if they've been going to nightclubs for a long time, that's going to add up. The alcohol, the sleep deprivation, potentially some of them are using illicit substances as well. That's all going to take a toll on a woman's body over the years. So this is why I think that like your average woman that goes to the club, chances are is going to be a lot lower quality compared in terms of appearance, physical appearance, compared to your average woman who goes to the gym regularly.
Well, you can have both, right? I mean, again, women in those kind of party years, 18, 23, you're probably more likely to find them charging around clubs, ironically. The best, but weirdly, the gym we're going to in Cali, I've never seen so many shredded 35 to 40-year-old women. It's almost like they've gone through those party years, and they're now like hell-bent on just maxing out the gym. It's really weird, though, because you're walking around, there's literally like grandmothers with 8-packs. And me and the guys are walking around with our little pop.
That sounds like heaven.
What the fuck? Yeah, we're just like, what the fuck is going on? It's like the most shredded gym I've ever seen. They're all using like human growth hormone, anti-aging, testosterone and stuff like that. But it's really bizarre. I'll try and get some clips on my phone of like ripped grandmothers today when I go into the gym. You'll be horrified.
Yeah, please.
It's something quite. No, I will. It'll be great.
That's basically my demographic now.
What, ripped grandmothers?
Yeah, basically. That's
kind of what grannies.
Yeah.
I'll send you an emoji, a good emoji you'll like after this, to do with grandmothers.
Good
so
stuff. But
if
you want to, you've mentioned like Thailand and Southeast Asia, but if you wanted to continue a dating life, and you're getting older, I mean, Colombia would work as well. It seems to me from you've experienced it more than I have, but
Colombia is a very safe pair of hands, I think. As an older guy, but also as a younger guy. Like I've been here recently with a couple of guys that Waffles' age, so early 20s, massive. One guy was Australian. He did okay in Australia. He'd gone maybe one date every few weeks, but he wasn't happy with the quality of the women. He went on like 4 dates in 5 days. Just because he was charging around a foreign dude. A bit of naughty. Women really like foreign men in Colombia. And again, the whole status thing plays into it. If you're from the Anglosphere, they know you've got a bit of money, you look different, you speak English, so it's considered cool. I mean, the purists will be like, how dare you go to second and third world countries? But in my opinion, that's just being sensible. I don't really like masculinized Anglosphere women. So why wouldn't I go to a place with high levels of femininity and where I can date a younger girl and get that kind of youthful energy fix as well?
Yeah, it's also very snobbish when people say that as well, as if somewhere like Colombia is somehow a second class sort of third world. It's somehow a lower class of place, or the people are a lower class of people, and they're absolutely not. I mean, these are just other human beings, and they're cultured, and they're intelligent, and they're funny, and they're warm and witty, and all the rest of it. So it's not as if you're getting a bargain or anything like that. I mean, in fact, if anything, I would say the options there the quality of women you're going to be meeting there are probably going to be better in many ways than you would meet in, say, a London or a Manhattan.
Yeah, I think we've spoken a bit about like global geomaxing. Now you guys have, obviously thrown out some good places that would be, ideal for men to take advantage of in different places of the world. But I think that there's two parts to geomaxing. So there's global geomaxing, which is choose your country, and then there's local geomaxing as well, which is, choosing your city or choosing your environment, your dating environment. So for the last part of the stream, are you guys happy to,
let's talk about it
more about local geomaxing?
Yeah, sure. Well, I mean, I kind of touched on it where I would say on a personal level, I tend to target, gyms, for example, beach-like environments from there. Cold approach, you can make it quite, there is that randomness cold approach, isn't there? But I would really recommend guys think about what they're looking for and try and target stuff. Like if you are into more kind of introverted, well-read women, it sounds bizarre, but going to places like libraries and just kind of swanning around there and giving it a shot is not the worst idea.
I've never
library
heard
maxing.
Do approach
library maxing.
I've never heard anyone approach a woman in a library before.
Do you like my new shoes? And she looks down your dick saying,
Yeah.
That used to be good banter. It's not anymore. I don't know, Troy. What would you say about being more specific?
Well, I think I certainly. I'm not sure about libraries, but I've certainly met girls in bookshops before, which is obviously a similar kind of thing. I think it can be quite a good environment. I mean, you're likely to meet people who are somewhat like-minded if you're on board with that. If you like to read and so not creepy going to library maxing. Oh, look at these PUAs! Look at these dating roaches. They're trying to get their guys to do library maxing. Yeah. Psycho hot girls are in the library, so no, he's quite right. No attractive woman has ever set foot in a library. That is validated.
But I thought the black pillars care more about purity, right? So a young geeky girl with a low sausage count, I thought that's the primary thing. And if that's the case,
how do you know that she's not in the library reading 50 Shades of Grey and she's
Well, she probably is actually. She probably is. I mean,
library girls are the worst. Believe me.
The ultimate way to do this really is, and it's something that we've come to kind of realize as we go around, is you don't want to spend hours doing cold approach either. Like, don't get me wrong, we always say to guys, look, Friday evening or Saturday day, pick a high volume time and charge out, to a shopping mall or somewhere like that. But really, you want to be building it into your lifestyle. So, we're kind of rhetoric we're banging the drum for at the moment is maybe 1 to 3 situational approaches per day as you go around your everyday life. So let's assume you live in somewhere like London, on the way to the coffee shop, at the coffee shop, on the way to the gym, and on your lunch break. Take those opportunities as you see them. Maybe 1 to 3 times a week. We always say this number of around 20 approaches a week would be a good place to start if you want to cold approach properly, in our opinion. So 1 to 3 approaches Monday to Friday, and then pick a higher volume time, a Friday evening or a Saturday day, and aim for maybe 7 to 10 approaches, in about 90 minutes, in a kind of a session, if you were, if you will.
Sorry, go on. Finish your point.
No, that was it. To try and make it as time effective as possible. That the days of it being cool to kind of trawl the streets as a PUA are long dead. There's nothing cool about that. It's a complete waste of your time, and you should be doing other things, enjoying your life and building your own value. And you shouldn't be just trawling around, talking to random women. The entire time. It's a very ineffective way to live life, and it turns you into a weirdo if that's all you're doing. So no, lifestyle game, Monday to Friday, and then to pick either a Friday or a Saturday, high volume time, and smash it for a couple of hours and try and get some reps in. That's what I typically do as I travel the world. And the high volume time will typically be out when I'm out with a student, either in a club or doing a day game session. Then the rest of the time is no targeted day game sessions. It's just situational in the course of my life.
Absolutely 100% the same with me. And I mean, certainly as I've got older as well, I mean, like the whole idea of going out and doing, right, I'm going to do my day game. I'm going to do my
2.5 sets a day in Moscow.
I mean, it's just nonsense. And to be frank, it is a bit fucking weird. It should be situational. It should be something that you just do as part of your day-to-day life. But you're just always on the lookout for those opportunities, and you've got to be ready to do it, which is the only reason why we'll do longer sessions with guys who are learning this stuff, because at the beginning you need to obviously cut your teeth and you need to get into the rhythm of it. But once
you need
you've done
exposure therapy at the beginning,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
once you're used to it, it's about building it into your lifestyle in a healthy way. And really, again, we've talked about this, Waffles, and it'd be interesting to get your take. But what me and Troy really teach is developing your levels of social freedom, so you can speak to any human being, any situation, any time, plus build that social emotional intelligence. So know what to do and say in that situation, right? And that's really what we're teaching here. It's kind of high level social skills, rather than charging around, with your proverbial wand saying 3 tricks to get any girl into bed. It's about being that charismatic, socially intelligent, charming guy. And really, life is sales in every format. It doesn't matter whether you're selling yourself in your next job interview, or trying to get invested into your company, or selling yourself on the dance floor on a Friday night to a guy you're trying to get back for a one-night stand. Life is sales. And it's all built around high-level social skills. And that's what we really try and teach. And that's the healthier message, I think, to take from all of this stuff, is it's not about being some pickup wizard.
Yeah.
It never has been, really, although there was that time when it was considered kind of cool.
Well, my opinion for when it comes to what's the best place to approach and what's the best way about doing it, I think that a lot of the time you got to play to your strengths and play with what's available to you as well. So, like, play to your hand, basically. So, obviously, if you're looking, only for casual dating, then probably the highest return on investment in terms of an environment there, I would say, is go to a nightclub or go to a bar, because you've got lots of women drinking, and you are going to be too, and like a lot of women are going to be like happy going. They're going to be easy going on those kind of nights out. It's probably the easiest way that you can maybe able to get like casual relationships if that's what you're after. Meanwhile, if you're not looking, if you're looking for something longer term, then the nightclub is the last place that I would go to in terms of approaching. You're probably better off doing some day game, or approaching in a specific environment like a bookshop or whatever, or a gym.
But is that the purity fancy thing of assuming that all good girls don't go out at night, and all girls you meet are just because you met them in the day, they don't go out at night? I mean, isn't that just you've met them in a snapshot of your life that you happen to be walking on the same street, because everyone has to walk on the street? How can you assume just because you met them in the day that they don't go out and party at night? How can you consider them to be apt for a long-term relationship?
There's going to be less.
Well, because you met them in the daytime. I mean, every woman
I'll put it this way.
in God's earth goes to a shopping mall, right? So if you met her in a shopping mall,
by definition, 100% of women who are in nightclubs go to nightclubs. But for the women that are walking around during the day, maybe only 20 or 30% of them are actually going to nightclubs. And if you see, which I do as well, that as a potential cause for concern in terms of seeking long-term potential, if a girl's going to nightclubs getting hammered all of the time, and bearing in mind also that a lot of women who go to nightclubs aren't going to be looking for long-term, they're probably still in their party years, they're not looking for a long-term partner, then, you're probably better off looking elsewhere. And of course, just by nature of the chance, women that you approach during the day might, occasionally go to nightclubs as well. They might be a party girl, but they're going to be far and few between. It's going to be well under half, because not every single girl goes to a nightclub. But going back to the original point about, playing to your strengths, it also depends, it could also depend on like how introverted you are and how outgoing you are. And, a lot of the red pill guys will just say, oh, you need to get over it and just build that confidence and make sure that you're approaching people. But for some guy that does have a hard time approaching women, without any formal reason, then maybe a warm approach would be much better suited for those guys. But obviously, if you're a person who's very extroverted, you have no issue talking to people at random, then cold approach might be a lot suited to you. And the only other couple of points that I was going to say is that your location might play a part as well. And obviously you can change that to some extent, but if you're living in a small town with only a couple thousand inhabitants, cold approach isn't even really on the cards. There might be one bar in the whole of the town, and there might only be a handful of women that you can actually approach. And as I've spoken about in my videos, the concept of poisoning the well, that if you over approach in certain places, then it can obliterate your chances. It can literally reduce them all to zero, because women are aware, oh, that guy Jay, he's the one that hits on every girl he has an opportunity with. But obviously that effect is nullified if you're in a huge city like London, where there's so many women to approach that it doesn't matter if you make a complete clown out of yourself, because no women are going to be, gossiping to the other woman who lives on, you know, the other side of the city. It's just not going to be possible. So you can only do so much damage. So I think the key takeaway is play to your strengths, play to what's available to you, and it should be fairly obvious which environment you should be focusing on in a local sense, depending on those factors.
Yeah, I agree. I do think though that these guys who, I mean, we will often get guys who come to us and they'll email and ask for advice or for a consultation or something like that, and you know they'll say, well, I'm living in this town and there's like 3,000 people there, so what do I do? How do I get really good at this? And I mean, of course, you know, you can say we'll go out and start conversations and things like that, but the harsh reality is, if you're living in a place that really is the back of beyond, there's a very small population. The poisoning the well thing, wheat waffles you mentioned, I completely agree with. You know, you are going to poison the well very quickly. You just need to get out. You just need to find a way to get out. And I think that just taking the UK as an example, I don't really see, regardless really of qualifications, I think everybody could potentially, or so everybody watching this who's in that situation wants to make a difference, probably could move to London and get some kind of a job. You know, like even if you've got no qualifications, whatever, there's people working, you know, there's low level jobs and stuff that you can get where you don't need qualifications. I mean, I think you've just got to go to a larger place where there's a larger population, where you've got more opportunities and you can put yourself out there more. I mean, if you're sitting in a small town and you're watching this, and you're like, oh, the dating market's crap, it's not fair, blah blah blah. You know, you're just holding yourself back, and there's really, I don't think there's a good way around it other than moving and putting yourself in a different location for a period of time.
I agree. Go to a bigger place, more volume. It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, this has been a very uneventful stream. People were wanting to see fireworks, and we've all kind of sat here like nice English gentlemen, drinking our proverbial cups of tea and agreeing on most things. So, I'm sorry, lads.
What do we disagree on? What do we disagree on?
The percentage, I think the only thing we really disagree on is the percent. Well, we all think online dating blows, which is true. I think the only thing we disagree on really is the proportion of looks, money, status, game, and how they weigh in. And obviously, mine waffle wench thinks, I don't know, what percentage do you think is looks? 70, 80?
Yeah,
something
I'd say
like that.
about 70 to 80% looks. Well, it depends on the environment as well. So obviously, online dating, you might as well say 100. I'm sure we both agree on that. But you know, if we're talking about warm approach,
I'd say online dating definitely weighted more heavily in looks.
Yeah.
Troy, if you had to take it as a not situational specific thing, but as an overall, from the point of view of a woman, where would you proportion the those four things in terms of, you know, importance?
Of what? Looks, status,
looks, money, status, and game.
I'd probably say status has got to be at the top. Really, I think status. Looks and game is tricky, really. So maybe even looks higher, but then game has got to come up there quite strongly. And then I think money is less of a factor than people think, in a way. I mean, yes, it's great to have money. You should have money for yourself, but there are plenty of guys who've got no money who are getting laid all the time.
Well,
so and there are plenty of guys who do have money who aren't getting laid all the time. So, you know, it's a no-brainer, really.
Well, I think
work on all of them is the key, isn't it? Max them all out, regardless of what percentages they are. They are all important in different formats. I'd agree with Troy that probably the most important is status.
I
would say all of them are important.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, you know, this whole black pill idea of looks have to be of a certain threshold, otherwise game's going to work. Do we disagree with that? Probably not, to be honest, because I think it's correct to say that if you are suboptimal in any of the categories, just because you've learned some lines off the internet, does it mean that you're going to get a Victoria's Secret model falling in love with you? Well, no, of course not. But at the same time, you could conceivably be a Chad, let's say, who works in the local bakery store, but is the incredibly hot local model going to be dating you? Or is she going to be dating the local politician or the local drug dealer or the guy?
I think the only thing that overrides everything is extreme status. And that's where all bets are off. So if you look at, you know, very ugly, you know, lead singers of rock bands and, you know, people like, who's the fucking pedo Prince dude? Who was he? Prince Andrew. People like that. You know, it doesn't matter what they look like when you get to a certain level of status, because the aphrodisiac, women have always seen men as success objects, in my opinion, and men see women as sex objects. And it
well, we were in that
sounds
club
harsh
in
to say,
we were in
but I
that
think-
club in Russia, weren't we? Do you remember the club in Sochi that we were in, Atlas or whatever it's called, the outside place? And there were some pretty ropey looking guys, but very jacked, sort of hard man looking guys, and they were surrounded by beautiful women, weren't they? And these weren't like good looking guys. These weren't sort of stereotypical chads or anything.
Well, I mean, look at someone like, you know, he's now dead, may he rest in peace. But Mini Me, he was having orgies with Playboy models. I mean, he's 3 foot tall. He looked like a baby boiled egg.
Mate, that's such an outlier. You're gonna get roasted in the comments. That's such an outlier.
I know.
I know what you mean. I know
we're
what you
talking
mean.
about my only point being is status is the thing that trumps everything when you have an extreme measure. I think.
Yeah.
And all bets are off for all the other stuff.
I think but sorry to interrupt, but I think that you can make the same argument surely about looks and also money. Like a brilliant example of that. Have you guys heard of Jeremy Meeks? He was some guy that got arrested, and he was locked up. And you know, you think that a prisoner of all people, you cannot reach rock bottom in terms of status. Like that is the lowest of the low, the lowest of the low. You know, it's on the same level as homeless people, pretty much, in terms of having no status. He had no status, no money, but he did have one thing going for him, and that was his looks, obviously. He wasn't able to utilise game because, you know, he didn't have a voice. He was locked up in a jail cell, but because of his looks, he was able to obviously have thousands and thousands of women sending letters to him, money, love letters, everything like that. So I think, you know, your point doesn't really hold a huge amount of water that it's only status, that if you reach the upper echelons that it can trump everything, because I think you can make the same argument for looks and as well money too. Like if you have enough money, then, you know, I think that you will get women showing interest in you. It might not be genuine affection or love, but it will be interest nonetheless.
Well, I think money is a sort of a proxy for status, really, isn't it? Or they kind of tend to go hand in hand. I mean, the Jeremy Meeks thing gets pulled out all the time, and it gets pulled out in the black pill. It also gets pulled out in the red pill, actually. It
gets pulled out all the time, but you can't just chalk it off like it is a genuine example.
It is, but I do disagree with the point that you made about prisoners being on the same level as homeless people. I think actually prisoners are in sexual market terms, I think they're of higher status actually than
definitely.
I mean, women are like there are many stories, guys who are on death row who are getting women writing love letters to them, and you know, and in fact, recently I was reading an article about who was it? So there was some terrible murderer in the UK, and he's got permission. Some woman came in and proposed to him, and he's now got permission to marry her. And there's been outcry in the UK, and that guy was not a Jeremy Meeks style Chad. So I'm not saying. I mean, yes. Jeremy Meeks, as it was, incredibly good-looking guy, model-esque sort of features, etc., etc. Although he did end up with bloody Philip Green's daughter, didn't he? Which is not really an optical.
No, but he's doing the sensible, let's cash in the millions card, isn't he? But I think,
of course,
as you said, I think the fact he was a prisoner actually elevated it. Yeah. It made it's like the bad boy with a heart. You know, women found that attractive. That dark triedness, they found that super attractive.
Yeah. Yeah.
If it'd been the equivalent as a homeless person, would he have had the same amount of love? I don't think so. He was very good looking, so he probably always would have got attention. But if he'd been homeless, I think it would have been less than if he'd been a prisoner.
Yeah, well, fair enough. I'm not going to debate too much about who has more status, prisoners or homeless people.
But there is that element, isn't it? It's like Richard Sterling Coper talks about it on his sexual dominance product, and he talks about this propensity for women find this propensity for violence or this potential for violence very attractive. And it makes sense, because if you go back to kind of the old school kind of evolutionary, you know, progression, it's like, you know, that alpha male, can he protect his horde of women, right? Can he protect his family? It makes complete sense. So even if, you know, women don't necessarily want a murderer, but the fact he could be, and he can be violent, he can dominate other men physically, it's an attractive trait. That's always going to be an attractive trait. That's why fighters get laid like rock stars.
Yeah, I think
it's not because they look like fucking $1 million, is it?
Yeah, I think it's underplayed with the Jeremy Meeks thing a bit in the black pill, because I think that actually the fact that Jeremy Meeks was a felon probably added to the allure rather than took away from it. But that's not to say that his looks had nothing.
There's a great book, actually. Sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make this point while I still remember it. There's a great book that actually, may he rest in Medellin, in his penthouse, Torero recommended, called Dangerous Men and Adventurous Women. And all the kind of the get wet kind of things, it's all the basis of the man, you know, this kind of protagonist who's a bit of a bad boy, You know, he does these bad stuff, and women try to tame him. Right? It plays into that fantasy. And look at 50 Shades of Grey. Isn't that the whole basis for the best-selling book of all time? You know,
yeah, but he's very good looking as well.
Well, he's arguably his status is, you know, trumps his looks. Like, you know, he was some CEO of some massive company, if I remember correctly. He was a billionaire.
Yeah, are they jazz? Is she jazzing up the fact he's a powerful dude in that more than the fact he's good looking, or does she put them hand in hand?
Elements of both. It's elements of both.
Right.
Yeah.
I think he's got a bit of everything. That guy. He's meant to be the sort of archetypal.
The real question I want to know is: was Osama bin Laden a Chadam, or a Chad? No. Was he would you say he was a Chadam with that beard, or was he good looking?
My girlfriend at the time, when
not the crazy one who almost caught.
No. This is a long time, a different one. She said that she thought he was quite hot. Because and I think he was actually quite good looking back in the day. Because if you look at older pictures of him, but she said his eyes were really nice, which I guess they kind of were. So
IMAXing, how dare he?
So he was terrorist maxing.
He was terrorist maxing, yeah, absolutely. A Chadam of the most dark triad order. Yeah. I've finally got after years and 900 videos my first super sticker, whatever that means, of $5. So I'm going to use that to go and buy 3 grams of Colombia's finest. I mean coffee, of course, nothing else. And see what the wind takes.
Yeah. Well,
what's
anyway,
this
guys,
from Dane Erickson? Hybristophilia. Ever heard of that?
Is that the propensity? So let's look it up.
Well, anyway, guys, I've got to be
Troy, what's your cologne? It's so potent he can smell it from here. Stop cologne maxing all over our screens. It's wafting through my speakers.
Guys, I'm not sure if you heard, but I've got to be out of here soon, so I'm happy to wrap up the stream. I think that we've dissected quite a lot.
We've covered a lot.
Sorry?
We've covered a lot. Hybristophilia is the attraction to those who commit crimes, by the way.
Okay.
New term.
Well, to sum this up, if you'd like to get in touch with my Waffle Mensch and get your face and the rest of your anatomy rated, he actually does do a pretty good system. So get in touch with him. His details will be below. And if you want to dust off the cobwebs and come and join me and Troy on our Charge Around Poland tour, where we're going to be hitting loads of different spots and having a general blast, then obviously get in touch with myself or Troy, and there's space available. Mr. M has not been to prison, although maybe one day.
Yes. And if you want to get the rest of your physique from the waist down verified, then John MLD I think offers that service.
I'm half black from the belly button down, as in the words of Conor McGregor. Yes, he'll be there to scrutinise it in big detail. Mr. Waffles, what are your plans for the next few months? Are you going to be travelling overseas and geomaxing with Tuscan Troy, or are you going to be staying put in the UK?
Yeah, I'll take my chances in the UK for now.
Keep it Birmingham. You're safe there.
Yeah.
Hey, you should come over for old time's sake. Have a bit of pierogi maxing. You know, some Polish dumplings, bit of vodka for the troops. We'll show you the.
You know where you are in bloody Birmingham. You know where you are with them Birmingham birds. You don't want no bloody foreigners.
You just sound like who's that? Who is Cillian Murphy's retarded young brother, Arthur Shelby, in Peaky Blinders. You sound like him. Identical. Yeah, well, if you do fancy it, Waffles, the invitation is there. I know we were supposed to go to Albania away last year, and that didn't materialise.
Yeah.
Poland, if you fancy the 6-week window, even if it's for a couple of days,
hopefully we can arrange something in future. But anyway, guys, I've really got to be heading out now. I've got to be out the door within the next 10 minutes. So,
good stuff.
Thanks a lot for the stream. Thanks for coming on, and thanks to everyone for tuning in to watch the stream.
It's been a pleasure, and we'll do it again soon.
As always.
So, thanks a lot. I'll wrap it up now.
Nice one. Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
There we go.
All good.